What's up, everybody? It's time for another episode of Free to Win, the series where we only use 2 and 3 star monsters and spend $0 on the game. You know what? Let me put a disclaimer because I know I'm going to need to say this in every single video. It's so much nicer to just have a disclaimer up there on the screen. There you go. What are we doing today, Bagel? Glad you asked. You didn't even ask that question. You wouldn't have asked that question because you saw it in the title and you saw it in the thumbnail. So you would never have asked me that question. Anyway, glad you asked. Or didn't ask that question. Today we're going to go through all the dungeon teams on this account. Dragons B12, Giants B12, Necropolis B12, Steel Fortress B10, and it's not Pacific Coast. Why do I want to say Pacific Coast? Punisher's Crypt. PC. What? PB. Whatever. Anyway, that's an argument and discussion for a different video. PC10. Punisher's Crypt B10, Steel Fortress B10. We're going to take a look at all of those different dungeon teams, even though, disclaimer, no, maybe not disclaimer, whatever. Is it irrelevant? I feel like it's kind of almost irrelevant because Triple Akara is just a thing, and you could use Triple Akara in so many different places, but if you guys are interested and you want to see what we use here in the 2 and 3 star only free-to-win account, these are the teams we use. However, fun fact, we don't have an Ikaru, like any Ikaru on this entire account. We don't have him built. If we go to, it's weird, right? He's so meta, and we just don't have him built at all on this account. At all. We should probably build him. I mean, there's no real reason. I didn't even think about it till now, but yeah, he's built on other accounts. He's just not built on this account. Whatever. Anyway, yeah, let's take a look at the dungeon teams. And then we'll show we'll show at least 10 runs. The results at 10 runs will show the time on them, and we'll see what they do. So the first team, let's go actually here, and then we'll to the runs. First team, Fran Lorne, fairly standard, right? Nothing too crazy. Fran is just on speed HP, very fast. This is actually one of our better Swift sets on the entire account. I'm not Swift set. It's on one of our better violent sets on the entire account. I think that Fran is great to have one of your better violent sets on Fran. I've put some of my better violent sets on Fran's on any account because she's just so, you could use her anywhere. She's so relevant. This is on just a Swift Revenge. Not necessarily that she has to be on Revenge. Actually, she's not bad for shield in some of these dungeons, so you can take a little bit of extra damage. It's not bad to have her on shield. She only has one artifact. We should probably put another artifact on her. There's no reason we shouldn't have another artifact. She's a little bit low on defense. I like to have her high accuracy. You don't need this much accuracy on her necessarily, but I do like to just max out the accuracy. So you can go for speed HP, speed HP defense. You go for speed HP, you go for speed HP accuracy. You just want to make her fast. You want to make her tanky, and you want to give her good accuracy. That's about it. You can go violent, you can go swift. There's benefits and drawbacks to either way. Extra accuracy on her artifacts is not bad either. If you don't have if you have like 50% accuracy, you can get the rest of the accuracy in artifacts if you go like speed HP defense or whatever. For Shannon is actually kind of interesting because Shannon is not even 6-starred, if you did not notice. So she's just on speed. This is actually very bad. Was this trying to prove a point? I think this may have initially been to try to prove a point that you could use her on whatever, but we should probably put better runes on her at this point. She just needs to be fast, she needs to be tanky, and she needs to have, I want to say, decent accuracy. Okay, so she does need much more accuracy than this. She does need more accuracy than this. So we're actually going to re-rune her at the, we'll run this dungeon with this. I didn't know she was this bad, but despair and fast. Right, so we'll put some we'll put some accuracy on her, and then we'll show the runs, and then we'll put some accuracy on her afterwards. So because I don't have time to rerun before we show the runs, because I got to do all these different runs on all these different dungeons. Anyway, this is Naomi. Fun thing about Naomi's passive is she does not need that much crit rate. So 53 crit rate is actually not that bad. I want her to be at least somewhat tanky. She has low defense. It would be nice to get some defense in some subs. I would like her to also be a little bit faster, but she does have 119 base speeds. That's not that bad. But one of the nice things about Naomi in Giants B10 is that she does attack gauge reduction. So she brands and she decreases enemies' attack bar. She doesn't need that high crazy crit rate. And she does attack gauge reduction, which I do feel like I do feel like. Naomi is definitely better than Crow in Giants to make it more safe, because you have that attack age reduction here, you have the slows here, you have it's a little bit of attack age reduction here, and it just keeps the Giant from getting turns. You don't want him to get turns, and she has element advantage. She's going to take less damage just overall. Between these two, it's not really going to take that much damage. Crow is here. He does a lot of damage. I'm sure everyone has, I'm sure a lot of people have good Giants B10 teams already. These are the runes on Crow. He doesn't necessarily need to be this crazy for this specific team, but I do like him. I mean, not that he's crazy. This is not like an end game Crow or anything. This is just it's a mid game Crow on Violent. He doesn't necessarily need to be on Violent. Violent helps him in Necropolis, because then he has more times to team up, which is not bad. But yeah, he doesn't necessarily need to be on Violent. You can put him on Rage, you can put him on Fatal, you can put him on, I would say Rage, Fatal, or Violent are the best things for Crow. But these are the runes for this one. Let's take a look at some dungeon runs, and let's see. Again, we can't do Lucian, we can't do Hraesvelg, we can't do some of the other stuff that you would normally see in here. If you are looking for a team and you're like, I'm not doing free to win, I want a Giants B12 team, take this out, put this in here, and do like a Lucian for a leader. Lagmarn is also now we're talking about things that are like whatever. This is just supposed to be free to win. Let's see some actual runs with the team. 10 runs are down, average time 2 minutes, not that great, but again, it's really not an end game team anyway. So 2 minutes, fairly reliable, even with a Shannon at 5 stars with literally zero accuracy, and 5-star runes not even upgraded. So even with the crap Shannon, I want to say fairly consistent. It's definitely consistent. It's not that fast, but it's more of an early game team. You can also, which I failed to mention earlier, is I know I said the Lucian, you can sub out the Lucian for the Crow. Some people still use the Crow and not the Naomi. Either way, as long as it works, if you're using Crow and it works, awesome. I like the Naomi because she just has some more attack age reduction and she's got element advantage over the Giant. You can also use Sigmaris as a leader skill too. If you have Sigmaris and you don't have Lucian, you're like early game, you're like, I'm trying to struggle with the team. I'm trying to struggle. You're probably not trying to struggle with the team. You're struggling with the team, trying to build one. You may want to, Sigmaris leader skill, and then Fran, Laura, Naomi, and Shannon. You don't even need a 6-star Shannon. 6 stars is going to make it better, but clearly we can do it with a 5-star garbage Shannon. Unfortunately, these runes, we're not even going to keep any of these runes except for this one. So that one we're going to keep, but everything else we are going, because this is nothing. This is just attack slot 4, which if you're early game, it seems like attack slot 4 is very exciting, but attack percentage slot 4, but it's not, unless I was going to use this for Ciara, but we don't have it's free to win. We're not going to use the Ciara. Next on list is Dragons B12, and we had to pull some crazy stuff for Dragons B12 on this account because, like I said, it is only 2 and 3-star monsters. So you normally use Vertiheal in like every team for Dragons B12. There is no Vertiheal, so you would normally use like a team maybe like this. There's a lot of different variations of things. You use Vertiheal and triple Inugamis, triple water Inugamis. You use Vertiheal and double fire Inugamis with the light homunculus. You can use Vertiheal with Spectra and Vertiheal Spectral Lord. Vertiheal Spectral Lord is kind of like a nice, for if you're not going to do triple water Inugamis, Vertiheal Spectral Lord is a nice start to, it's like a foundation, nice foundation to building your Dragons B12 team. We're not using Vertiheal. We don't use Vertiheal. We only use 2 and 3-star monsters. That's the whole gimmick for the entire account. So we had to basically go without that. When you take all that turn cycling out, this doesn't become, I mean, it could be okay if you have crazy runes on it, but it loses some of its strength. So we had to go with something totally different. So for this one, even though there's a lot of other really good teams that are very free-to-play friendly, like, for example, the Light Homunculus, the Water Homunculus, Vertiheal, which is a fusion unit, really, really nice teams. Also, Bell is a really great unit here, too. Bella's a really, really great unit. We had to actually use this. Or we could actually probably stick a Bella in here instead of one of these Spectras. I'm sure would be even better. But this is the current team that we're using on this. It's very wacky. I would not recommend building this specific team. I would recommend either going for, like, if you're early game. Well, if you're early game, I would say still farm Giants B12. Like, don't try to do like a little bit of Giants and a little bit of Dragons. Like, do Giants B12. Focus on getting that done, and then farm the crap out of it until you get to the point where you're going to do Dragons B12. I would not recommend building this team. This works really great for the stipulations on this account, but again, I would still recommend for, like, if you're just starting to get into Dragons B12, I would recommend for Vertiheal, Lauren, Spectra, and then Water Homunculus is fantastic, but you may not have the sculpts for that for early game. So for early game, if you're just starting to get into Dragons B12, not like super early game again, but farm Giants for quite a while and then starting to build your first Dragons B12 team, this is probably what I would recommend, because you're not going to have the triple Lucario stuff. You're not going to be able to do triple Lucario yet. So this would be probably the thing that I recommend. You could use Water Homunculus instead of this, or you could use that. You can use Bella, or you can use Fran. Is going to be both nice. However, we're not going to do that. We're going to go still again with, this is the stipulations on this account. Not saying to go out and build this specific team, but these are the, you want these to be fast. Speed, core damage. I like to have a lot of accuracy on it. You don't need to have max accuracy. You still do need to have some decent accuracy though. And then speed, HP, accuracy there. I do like a lot of accuracy on this team. It's not a fast team, but it does get it done for the 2 and 3 star only requirements. So everything speed, core damage, accuracy for the most part. You don't need attack on Spectra. That's one of the things. Speed, core damage, accuracy, speed, core damage, accuracy. Yeah, we're just trying to get, actually we didn't even get artifacts on some of these Spectras, did we? No, we're missing artifacts on the right-hand sides on every single Spectra, so we got to do that. And we're also missing artifacts on, we're missing artifacts on Lauren too. Yeah, we're missing a lot of right-hand side artifacts. I guess we'll get into that in the next one. We actually have maxed artifacts, which is weird, why we're missing some on the right-hand side. But anyway, let's take a look at some of these dungeon runs and let's see how it does. Ten runs down, average time around 2 minutes and 11 seconds. I know so many of you are probably looking at this. You're like, Vega, I thought that was a gimmick team. That actually works. You actually run with this. Again, this is not my main. This is just the free to win with only 2 and 3 star monsters. We did this for fun, and because I think we did this for fun because I wanted to see triple Spectra, and I also wanted to build a nice Dragons B12, consistent Dragons B12 team for this. And this is what I tested a bunch of different stuff, and this is what actually wound up happening. Again, let me just disclaim this again. I would not recommend building 3 Spectras on anyone's account unless you are doing some kind of gimmick. I'm a YouTuber. That is a gimmick. I'm just being perfectly honest, right? Vertiheals. Take 2 Spectras out, put a Vertiheal in, put a Water Homunculus in. What else? Bella's actually nice too, right? So those two, and you don't have to necessarily build Shylock. Shylock's always been good in Dragons. A lot of people don't give him the credit that he actually is pretty decent in Dragons. He's got pretty high base speed too. If he gets a second awakening, you better believe if Shylock gets a second awakening at some point, I am going to be using him all the time. But he's pretty fast base speed if you guys didn't know. He's got a skill 1 strip, he's got a skill 2 triple attack gauge reduction, and skill 3 AoE attack gauge reduction. So those are all nice for both the middle stages for Dragons and the end stage for the boss. Not that he's usable everywhere, not that he's great everywhere. You could use him. Now I'm starting to get into the point where I'm like trying to tell people to build Shylock. You don't have to build. Spectra is great. You don't have to build Shylock. Don't worry about it. I'm just showing you the team on here. Let's go on to Necropolis now. Necropolis B12, way more straightforward. We have 2 Inugamis, they're very popular. We have the Frey and Lauren, they basically work in so many different areas of the game, so many different dungeons. The one odd man out is actually Adrian, the Fire Elven Ranger. So Adrian, actually he's on pretty somewhat efficient runes. If you're endgame, you're like, no, those are not efficient. If you're early game, you're like, oh, those seem like good runes, right? He doesn't have crazy speed, but we only use him in Necropolis. He's on like kind of like a bruiser set, because I feel like he needs good accuracy, because he's got the continuous damage with skill 2. He's got this, it buffs the speed and crit rate, which is nice because that means we don't need as much crit rate on things like the Fire Inugami, which has 76 crit rate, which crit rate buff is 30% crit rate, right? So that makes the Fire Inugami 100% crit rate after his buff, and then that makes the Crow, actually Crow's got low damage because, well, Crow's got low crit damage because he's on Violent though. That's unfortunate because I would like Crow. Crow does so much damage with more crit damage, right? If he's on Rage. But the Adrian gives 30% extra crit damage to units when he uses his Path of the Forest 3rd skill. So those 2 DPS units effectively have 100% crit rate, which means they're going to be critting all the time. And then also Adrian has a 71% crit rate after he gives his buff. So we have him kind of, it's weird that we have him all like on a bruiser build, right? Because you can just do speed, HP, accuracy for Adrian, Violent Revenge, and be totally fine. You don't need the extra crit rate, you don't need the extra crit damage, you don't need any of that, right? You can just do, make him tanky, give him good accuracy, and just have him do, for his damage, have him do this continuous damage, because this is really doing enough. I just wanted to squeeze out a little bit more damage from him, because we do only have the, we have Fran and Lauren in there, they're really not doing too much damage, so I wanted to squeeze him out kind of as a 3rd DPS unit to actually kill this Lich King, because you do need a decent amount of damage to kill Lich King. The longer the battle goes, the stronger he gets, the more likely you are to lose. So it's kind of one of those things you kind of almost do have to speed run a little bit. But this team does fine. This is just fairly standard, fairly meta units. We just ruined them. We ruined them to be good just in general, to be decent in general. The Adrian is ruined specifically for this, though. This is the only place that he is used. This is the only place we use him. He's got crit rate increasing effect, speed increasing effect. He already does those effects to himself, which is nice if you have something that buffs its own stats, and then you have an artifact that gets extra bonuses from those buff stats. Also, damage dealt on Dark. If we're only using him for Necropolis, that makes a lot of sense here. And then we have, and I just try to use whatever artifacts seem the most impactful for him specifically. Like, for example, if we were a little bit low on defense and he's taking a little bit too much damage, you know, defense as an artifact is not bad. Skill 2 accuracy is nice because continuous damage, you really want that to land. It's just continuous damage, it's just damage based on the enemy's max HP that ticks off. Damage dealt by afflict damage is nothing. Defense increasing effect is nothing. Skill 2 crit damage, just a little bit more damage out of this. But his base attack is terrible anyway, so it's not really a necessary thing to make him a DPS unit. I just wanted to squeeze a little bit more DPS out of him. We don't have any, well, we have maybe a couple grinds here and there on this account, but we don't really do R5 much on this account at all because no one really wants to, especially if you are raiding with, oh my god, I'm getting way too big of an explanation. There's a language barrier. It's Korea server, there's a language barrier, and I can't explain to them that 2 and 3 star monsters doing R5 actually works, so it's usually like they see the team and they say, oh, nope, I don't want to see if that works, and you get kicked, especially if you don't speak the same language as them. So even if the team works, it doesn't really matter. So this is the Necropolis team. Let's see some runs. End results for Necropolis B12, 1 minute 55 second average runtime. It's not the fastest team in the world, it's not breaking any records, but it is using only 2 and 3 star monsters. And we can see here, we failed, well, we didn't fail, we lost how many units? We didn't lose any units. Okay, nice, that's what you, well, that's not necessarily what you want to go for. It doesn't really matter if you lose units or not. all that matters, I mean, you could YOLO and lose whatever units as long as it's reliable and it's consistent, then that's all that really matters. You could lose 4 out of 5 units every single run and it wouldn't matter, right? All we want to do is make sure that we consistently clear it and we have as good of a time as we can for whatever account we're running it on. Of course, free to win is kind of limited. My main, for example, has just 5 twins, just all 5 DPS units, and it's about half the speed of, it's about half the speed of this one, maybe even less. But in this one, we're using only really 2.5 DPS units. We have the double Inugamis, which are DPS, we say DPS, damage per second units, but it's really not DPS. It's damage dealing units. We have 2 damage dealers, and then we have Adrian, which is kind of like a damage dealer, even though he doesn't really do that much damage. His damage is through continuous damage, but we basically have 2.5 damaged DD units, damage dealing units. We should have been saying this for 6 years, right? Next on list is Steel Fortress B10. So for this dungeon, we need block beneficial effects. Not just strip, we need block beneficial effects because his passive gives him extra beneficial effects, and then one of the towers gives him extra beneficial effects, and then he takes less damage based on those and does crazy stuff. So we need block beneficial effects because he's going to keep getting them over and over and over and over again, right, throughout the course of the battle. So that is the biggest thing, and there's nothing to cleanse that debuff off of him. So we actually have, one of my favorite units just in general for this dungeon is Ling Ling, the Wind Kung Fu girl, which was absolute garbage before they changed her to give her block beneficial effects. Now she's actually pretty good. So, well, she's actually very good in this specific dungeon. So that's like my favorite unit. A lot of people are also using the Dark Vampire Lord for this. There's other units. This is one of the other really, really good units for this, even with these crazy, we have double revenge and then just a broken set on him. He's on speed defense, but his passive decreases the chances of being attacked with a critical hit by 50%, which is okay, it's whatever for here. Attacker cannot be granted with beneficial effects for 1 turn when you are attacked. So his passive continually gives the boss the block beneficial effects. In addition to that, we also have Destructive Blow. Attack deals more damage to as your HP becomes lower, blocks the enemy from getting beneficial effects for 2 turns with a 75% chance. Damage increases according to your defense. So he has a skill 2 that also blocks beneficial effects. If that wasn't enough, just in case things go crazy, we also have this one that does block beneficial effects with this. Curse an enemy removes the beneficial effects, so it's a strip. We also have a strip with Lauren's skill 2. Right, so we got two things that strip. We have 2 things that block beneficial effects. 2 units that block beneficial effects. The Celia and the that's his name, right? Igmonodon? Yeah, Igmonodon. So she does this strip and disturbs HP recovery and blocks beneficial effects here. We also have an AoE defense break just to give more chances to defense break the waves on the way to the boss. So let's check, and then everything else is just the same. You've seen everything else. So we'll see 10 runs of this. We'll see the average time, see how it works. You know the deal. There you go, guys. 10 runs of Steel Fortress B10 using only 2- and 3-star monsters. We're seeing an average runtime of 2 minutes and 7 seconds, which is, we're seeing a trend across all the different dungeons, is that with the 2- and 3-star monster only stipulation, all of these runtimes are like around 2-minute mark. I don't think we probably don't have any good artifacts, and I probably have to clear a lot of these because we're almost maxed. I had to clear because we were maxed on artifacts before the video, but let's see how much deviation we have. We lost nobody in any of the runs, I don't think. Yeah, we didn't lose anyone, so it's very consistent. Steel Fortress is not the more challenging one. The Punisher's Crypt is the more challenging one for early to mid-game players to actually complete. Here is where it gets a little crazy, and I'm not telling you to go out and build 3 Wind Mummies for Punisher's Crypt B10 or 3 Wind Mummies for anything. This initially started, because you don't really get a lot of value out of 3 Wind Mummies, building 3 for anything in the game. This started out as an experiment to see if their passive would do really well against the Punisher's Crypt, and it turned out that it did do really well, and it's not fast, but it did do really well. I'll go over the passive in a second against the Punisher script because he takes a lot of turns, he turn cycles a lot, and anytime he turn cycles and gets more additional turns and attacks them, they do continuous damage to him, or continuous damage to anything when they get hit. Look at these amazing runes on these wind mummies. Wow, I mean, no one's ever going to be able to get one set of energy. Oh, a set of energy, a set of nemesis. Oh, actually, that's 3 sets. Never mind. I thought they were broken sets at first. But yeah, these are just on whatever runes I could make tanky and tanky. That's about it. They just need to be tanky. They just need to survive. Their passive becomes immune to continuous damage. That's irrelevant for this area. But when they are attacked, the attackers will suffer continuous damage for 1 turn. This also has continuous damage with skill 1. So basically, boss just keeps turn cycling, getting more turns, especially with Fran. See, the thing with Fran is intentionally here, even though she's bad here. Her skill 1 will decrease the attack bar, right? The attack gauge of the boss, and the boss based on which one of his mechanics? Yes, on this one. The attack bar of all allies will be increased up to 50% according to each of their attack speed when they are attacked, and the boss gains a turn instantly when the boss gets attack bar decreasing effect. So, he does damage to the mummies. The mummies do continuous damage to the boss based on their passive. Then Fran comes in and decreases his attack gauge, which instantly gives him another turn, and those continuous damage effects tick off and do the damage to him. Then he gets, in that extra turn, he does more damage to the mummies. The mummies do more continuous damage to him, and the cycle repeats until eventually he just kills himself with continuous damage. That was the experiment, that was the hypothesis, and it turned out to actually work. Weirdly enough, Vigor was the most reliable thing that it worked with, because I tried it with several different things as the 5th unit. I don't want to show you guys the Vigor runes. I feel like I have to show you guys the Vigor runes. Do not rune Vigor like this. Do not rune Vigor like this. He is on just nonsense. This is just on speed, HP. Disregard the fact that he's on rage, because that's bad, right? That's totally irrelevant. Just put him on violent, speed, HP, with any 2 set, energy, focus, guard, and do whatever, nemesis, doesn't matter. Anything to make him fast and tanky with a little bit of accuracy, right? Because accuracy, this defense break is kind of nice. But he just needs to be fast and tanky. He just needs to survive. Keep putting this Predator's Cry up, and then that's about it. He really doesn't need... For here, he just needs to be... I mean, just Vigor in general, just fast and tanky. I really don't want to even show you guys that he's on Rage, because that's just the wrong build. So, don't do that. You know what? Let me show you guys an actual good Vigor build. Hold on. Just to contrast that, here is Vigor on my main. He is on just speed, HP. He's very fast. He is on violent and will. He's just fast and tanky and annoying and does a lot of turn cycling and defense breaks and skill 2s, and he just gets really annoying. That is a nice Vigor build for just speed, HP. Some people like to do crit damage on their Vigor. Let's see a crit damage Vigor. Here's another one of my own accounts. This is on Europe server. He is on crit damage for this build. This is a speed, crit damage, HP. He's just fast and tanky, and he has some crit damage on him. So 2 different ways to build Vigor. You don't have to be as crazy with the making sure he has will runes and making sure for Punisher script, making sure he has will runes and making sure he has this speed and the crit damage and anything. You just need to be violent, fast, tanky, little bit of accuracy, and you're good to go. You don't need to go crit damage, just whatever. He's just there to keep the other units alive, basically. Now we're back here on Free to Win with the crap Vigor. That's what I lovingly like to call this one. So let's see some dungeon runs of this crazy, very strange Punisher script B10 team. 10 runs down. I know you guys are looking at that triple mummy and you're like, that's not going to work. Fran, triple mummy, those are like the worst units to use there. How does that work? 2 minutes, 22 seconds average time. But yes, it does work. The whole gimmick, I mean, it's not that I would recommend building a triple win mummy, but the whole gimmick of them doing continuous damage to the boss whenever the boss cycles a turn actually did turn out to be. We did a video on the triple win mummy before as well. But it did actually wind up working, and not only working, but also being, weirdly enough, actually reliable enough to run. Is it the fastest team? No, it is not the fastest team. Are you going to get a lot of value out of building 3 mummies? No, probably. I would say, unless they happen to get Second Awakening and become really insane, then I would say, you know, maybe for Siege or something like that, right? To have 3 of them could be interesting for Siege if they get Second Awakening and become very, very OP. So, that being said, is it really a great idea to build 3 win mummies? No. Is it a great idea to build 3 Spectras? No. But if you guys want, you can play around with some of the teams, subbing some other units out instead of those, and seeing if maybe you can pick up some strategies here and there. Honestly, the best things that I would recommend are the Steel Fortress team is kind of nice. You can use those units for different things as well. And then the Giants team is a nice beginner Giants team. And then the Necro team is just... Necro team, the only weird unit you're building is Adrian. And he's really just for Necropolis, but he does well enough there. You can sub him out with some other stuff if you want, but I do like the Adrian in there. He seemed to be the most reliable. And of course, I test out different things every so often. And this is just the stipulation is only using 2 and 3 star monsters. So anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This is not necessarily a guide of like everyone must build these teams. Obviously, these are not the fastest teams. It's definitely a gimmick of just using 2 and 3 star monsters, but it's just food for thought if you guys maybe get some thoughts like, oh, maybe this might be good for, you know, maybe you want to stick 1 unit in here or there. Maybe you want to build an Adrian. Maybe you want to build like Fire Lizard Man or something like that. Anyway, like I said, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. This took me way too long to film and edit and everything. Real talk, hashtag real talk. This took me way longer because it takes like, what, like an hour and a half just for the dungeon runs itself, just to wait for all those dungeon runs. And I recorded all the dungeon runs. I'm probably not going to put every single dungeon run in there, but I recorded all of them anyway. So yeah, it took way longer than I realized. I wanted to have that out earlier today, but didn't quite happen. So anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you as always in the next one.